The Iran war is now entering a decisive phase. There was a 60-day window that both America and Iran had to try and negotiate a way out of the current crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, as well as, of course, to ensure that Iran does not get a nuclear weapon. Iran, on the other hand, is now claiming victory on all the 9 objectives that were laid out at the start of this war. Mohammad Ghalibaf, who is the Speaker of the Iranian National Assembly, has said that Iran has won this war and America has lost. Donald Trump, the U.S. president, meanwhile, says the Strait of Hormuz should be declared American territory. He continues with his tantrums, mood swings, and change of strategy virtually on a daily basis. What is the way out? Is this war ending anytime soon? And what about domestic compulsions in the form of rising oil prices and the upcoming midterm elections? Could that deter Trump and finally put some better sense in his head? I'm now joined by a very special guest, Mr. Mick Mulvaney. He's the former White House Chief of Staff, somebody who's worked very closely with President Trump back in his first term between 2019 and 2020. So there was a 60-day window for both sides, America and Iran, to try and find a way out of the Hormuz crisis, as well as, of course, on how Iran will not possess a nuclear weapon. That 60-day window has now passed. How do you see this war now playing itself out? Because markets are concerned, oil prices are rising, and this war just seems to be going on forever.
And I think that's pretty much what I expect to continue. The 60-day memorandum of understanding lasted much less than 60 days. I think the hostilities in some way, shape, or form recommenced probably 10 days after that document was signed. Honestly, I got asked a question about it here in the United States last night. I had forgotten about the MOU, and my guess is many folks in Washington had as well. It was simply not a workable document. But your point is well made, is that I don't see what happens here. I don't see what happens next. The only thing I keep coming back to is that Trump has to figure out a way to reestablish credibility, has to figure out a way to force the Iranians to want to end the war. I don't believe the Iranians want to end the war just yet. And the only way I think they're going to be able to do that is through military escalation. Yes, the United States Treasury Department has said they're going to begin a new level of economic sanctions, but Iran has shown sort of an unwillingness to bend to economic sanctions for the last almost 50 years. So I don't know what's going to be new in that package of ideas that the White House brings to the table. So you put all those things together, and I just keep coming back again and again in my head to a protracted war that will not end, at least until there is some type of escalation for some period of time.
The biggest economic pressure point, of course, is the Strait of Hormuz, which even today Iran seems to be able to control. Trump, in the last 24 to 48 hours, has said that he's going to make Strait of Hormuz into an American territory. How can the United States possibly enforce the free movement of commercial tankers in the Strait of Hormuz?
I mean, you could, in theory, using a dramatic military escalation in the region. I'm not sure what the significance would be of declaring it American territory. I'm not even sure how you do that. I would assume Congress has to do something. Trump can't do that. But even if they did, how would it be different? If you go out and say, well, this is our territory, what are you going to do differently? Not what are you going to say differently, I think is the fair question to ask. Does the American military have the ability to secure the Straits 100%? Yes, they do. Do we have the political will to do that? That's a fair question, because we haven't up until this point. Is it difficult to do? Yes. Is it possible to do? Yes. But the real challenge is, do we have the will to do it? And so far, we've decided to look at other means to try and end the war.
One of the mitigating factors, if Trump were to decide to escalate, would be the domestic concerns. Oil prices are rising, gas prices are up again, close to $5 a gallon. You have oil prices, international Brent prices are again close to $90 a barrel now. Markets have been reacting negatively as well, and that's one pressure point. And then, of course, there's the big midterm elections coming up later this year. These are domestic factors that are preventing Trump from escalating, would you reckon? And if those factors are then how does he?
And I think that's a basic misunderstanding. And I speak all over the world, and everyone seems to think that Trump is focused on the midterm elections and that he will change his policies in the Mideast because of the midterm elections. I just don't see it. In fact, I think he let his guard down a couple of weeks ago and said he really didn't care that much about the midterms. That's the right thing for a president to say, and probably a right way for the president to think. I think the president needs to be more interested in the longer arc of history than what's going to happen in 2 months in the midterm elections. And keep in mind, his life doesn't change that much if the Republicans lose control of the House or the Senate. Yes, he might have to deal with an impeachment, but he's done that a couple times before. It doesn't really change things that much. Yes, if the Senate goes Democrat, he might lose the ability to get some people confirmed, but that's minor in the greater scheme of things. Keep in mind, about 90% of everything that you've seen come out of this administration over the course of its first 2 years now has been through the use of executive authority, not through Congress. And I think that model will continue. So does Trump want the Republicans to win? Yes. Is he willing to change policy in the Mideast in order to accomplish that? I don't think so.
Let me just press you on that point. If the Republicans were to lose the House, and who knows what's going to happen in the Senate, doesn't Trump then become a lame duck president? And two, wouldn't the Republican Congress in both houses also then start putting pressure on the administration that you can't have such wayward behavior by the president?
A couple different things. He's a lame duck to a certain extent anyway. Any president in the last 2 years of his 8-year term, whether or not that's consecutive like most presidents or non-consecutive like Trump, would be a little bit of a lame duck anyway because you're not running for re-election. Donald Trump is still going to have a great deal of say over things like Republican primaries in the future. But the lame duck issue doesn't really change things all of that much. Regarding the Democrat, you're referring now to what we call oversight here, with the Democrat oversight of this administration, would they try to tie the hands of the administration, try to do things in order to limit what the administration does on the war, for example, on what other things, other policies that Trump is trying to put into place? Yes, but keep in mind they'd have to pass a law to do that, most of it at least, and he could veto a lot of that. So just having a thin majority in our House and our Senate, or both, doesn't really give the Democrats that much more control over Trump than, say, the Republicans have right now.
All right. And a final question. It's going to be 6 months since this war began by the end of this month. It doesn't seem like America is winning. It certainly doesn't seem like Iran has been defeated. In fact, Mohammad Ghalibaf, who is the Iranian speaker today, said that there were 9 objectives that Trump had laid out at the start of this war. And he says on all 9 objectives, Iran has won, according to him.
I think from the Iranian perspective, there's one objective, which is not to lose. This is a war of survival for them, not a war for victory. It's easier to win those sorts of wars. And you have to say they have accomplished that. They have survived. The Iranian leadership has survived, which I think has confounded a lot of people in this administration. Look, I think that the Trump administration would have a very difficult time right now pointing to a success in the last 6 months. Yes, Iran has been militarily devastated, but not to the point where they can't close the Straits of Hormuz, which is one of the things we really care about. They're not launching nearly as many missiles into friendly countries and so forth, our friends, but they still have some ability to do that. So while we have military victories, we don't have strategic sort of accomplishments. We haven't opened the straits. We haven't removed their ability to build a nuclear weapon. We haven't had regime change. We haven't done any of the things the administration said we had set out to do. And yeah, that's going to be a challenge. Right now, I think the administration is looking for a way to either declare victory and get out, which would be very difficult to do, or to figure out a way to win, which brings me back again to this concept of escalation at some point in the near future.
All right. Mick Mulvaney, thank you very much for joining us, former White House Chief of Staff, giving us his thoughts and perspective into where this war is currently and how it's expected to proceed over the next few weeks and months. Thank you.
Thank you.